We gotta get
Listen,
going.
where you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Normo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
big
big
house.
place
We sold it
outside
out.
of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000 seats?
We really should.
Look, you better get up there before he panics. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime is good for climbing.
Hello and welcome to the Normal Cast. I'm Chris Kalous, your host. This is episode 8, a conversation with my friend Steph Davis. It is April 2nd, 2012, 6 o'clock or so, Mountain Standard Time. I missed my deadline of the 1st yesterday, which is my self-imposed deadline to put these things out, the 1st and the 15th. Sorry about that, but I have a good excuse. I've been climbing a lot. I've been to Shelf Road here in Colorado, been to Mill Creek, Indian Creek, Castleton in Utah, and climbing locally because the weather's been great. And I really don't want to become one of those people who starts talking about climbing more than they are actually climbing. That would be really sad, and I would be a really sad man. And besides, if you notice that it didn't come out yesterday and that upset you, then you too are leading a little bit of a sad life. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate your support. I appreciate that you're hanging on tightly. But yeah, if you noticed it didn't come out yesterday and that made you mad, then you need to take a step back and call some friends and hang out with them. Today's show, like I said, is with Steph Davis. Steph is one of the most well-known climbers of my generation. Certainly one of the most well-known, accomplished female climbers of my generation. She hates to be bottled up in that trad climbing qualifier, but she's certainly made a name for herself in that realm more than a lot of others. And besides, when she started climbing, it was just called climbing because there really wasn't much sport climbing to be done. Interestingly, Steph is a well-known climber who is also well-known outside of the little climbing bubble. She certainly has a fan base outside of climbing thanks to her website, High Infatuation, which deals with a lot of lifestyle, health, mind, body, as well as climbing, as well as base jumping, as well as outdoor adventure, and inspires a lot of people. So that's kind of cool, too. Talking to her made me start to wonder who was kind of coming up on the girl side of things in trad climbing these days. Maybe I'm sort of out of it, but there doesn't seem to be a name that jumps into my head like Lynn Hill or Steph Davis in terms of people coming up and trad climbing. There certainly is a lot of women out there quietly crushing it. But am I missing the sort of that next big crack climbing, big wall American female superstar? Anybody? Am I missing that? I might be. I see a lot of pictures of and videos. I actually watched some videos of young female climber Sasha DeGillian, French, Julia Julian. Anyway, I don't know. None of the videos tell me how to pronounce her name. But all those videos are of sport climbing, mostly in the red. And, I don't know. That just doesn't grab me. I mean, for me, and I think most people, in the long run, sport climbing is kind of boring and forgettable. I mean, it's cool to do, and it's exciting in the moment, but does it last? Does it last in our collective imagination? Does anybody know who the first person to climb 13B was? And what the name of the route was? I mean, off the top of your head. Has anybody ever noticed how the grades substitute the name of the route? You ask your buddy, like, what'd you climb? He says, I don't know, some 12B over there. Maybe there's just too many to try to remember all the names. I don't know. Actually, that would be a really great show. Somebody needs to come on and convince me why somebody climbing 14D instead of 14C should get me all tittery. I mean, if you think about like Lynn Hill, she was a brilliant competition climber, continues to climb sport really hard, climbed as well as anybody in the day when she was in her prime, sport climbing. But what's the one thing we really remember about Lynn Hill? Does everyone want to say it together? She free climbed the nose, the big route. That's what we remember. That's what captures the imagination. So Sasha DeGijon, if that's your real name, take some advice from me, someone who's been around the block, someone who's read the book Climb like 40 times, okay? I know my history. You want to last in history, you got to do the big stuff. You got to get out on the big stuff, sister. I want to see you on El Cap next year. I want to see you on expeditions. You know what I'm saying? I know you got the big contract now, but I'm telling you, big stuff. If you need any more advice, Sasha, my door is always open. The Normal Cast is waiting for you. So just give me a call or have someone from Adidas give me a call, or I don't know how you do that sort of stuff, but somebody needs to call somebody. Anyway, back to Steph Davis. Steph Davis does climb the big stuff. She not only climbs it, she sometimes free solos it. Not only does she free solo it, sometimes she jumps off the top afterwards. So let's get to it. My conversation with Steph Davis, not just a traddy.
So you brought my level up. That's better.
Okay, so you can hear yourself?
Well, I was quiet and you were loud.
But that's going to be normal because of my dusky voice. Okay, so that's not actually causing any problems, so you can keep that thing on.
The phone? I turned the volume down because I wanted to see people liking your stuff.
Thanks.
The second I posted your suitcase, one of your fans said that they were listening to your podcast.
That is awesome.
Doesn't that make you happy?
Was it Johnston? Something Johnston?
It was Ken Johnston.
Ken Johnston. Thanks, buddy. I'm sitting in Steph Davis's double wide in Moab, drinking tea, and Steph has agreed to sit down for a lengthy interview for the Normal Cast. I really appreciate it. Oh, now you're going to stop talking?
You're making me nervous.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get into it. We already started. I'm going to leave all that other stuff in here. So I've known Steph for about 20 years.
That's amazing.
A little longer, actually.
But not really consecutively.
No. We've drifted apart and come back together. But
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We're so happy now.
But Steph and I went to Colorado State together in the late 80s, early 90s. When did you start? 90?
No, I went there in 91.
91, that's right.
Because that was my sophomore year. That's when I met you. But then I don't think I knew you when I came back for my master's, did I?
No, I was gone.
You were gone.
Yeah.
But then I knew you again in Estes in the guide shack.
Mm-hmm. Barely, yeah.
Just barely. When you had that song. Remember that song?
The song, the Elkhorn Avenue song?
That was so good. I was so impressed.
I wish I had a recording of it. Maybe I'll
wish
dig
you
one
did
up.
too. I can still remember you singing that song because it was so good. It was.
It was a satirical song about Estes Park done to the tune of Dirty Boulevard by Lou
It was
Reed.
Great.
I think I have the lyrics somewhere. Maybe I'll post them.
And you played really well. I mean, that was amazing.
And at CSU, actually, my earliest memory of you is that you and I had a class together, and I don't think you actually knew me at that point.
I didn't know you.
But I knew that there was this girl in the class who was a climber because you'd have like a
climbing T-shirts.
Yeah, climb like what was the pump? The
horse tooth hang.
Well, there's a horse tooth hang, and then there was something pump was another one. But anyway, it was a Shakespeare class with your advisor. What was his name?
Hensey.
Dr. Hensey. You agree, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That was his line all the time. He'd end everything with, you agree, don't you? But, yeah, so I was sitting there, and I was all like this total grubby, long-haired climber that would wear headbands. And then there was this girl that was
also... Did you
have
long hair?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And haven't you seen my the passport on Lisa's wall?
I don't remember.
Yeah, check it out. She's got it stuck around her door there. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway, so that's what I remember you initially, and I was just like, who's that chick, man? She's a climber, right on. And then we didn't really know each other other than casually, maybe just because the scene was kind of small.
You probably sat in the back, and I sat in the front or something.
Yeah, oh yeah, you were up front like, oh, I know the answer. But you did know the answer, so it's cool.
I did know the answer.
He made us memorize like 20 lines for the final. Do you remember that?
I don't remember anything, Chris.
That's okay. I have this weird memory.
You've got the good long-term memory. See, I'm too easy to remember for the short term, and then it just has to be flushed.
Right. So you had started climbing before you got to CSU, though, in Maryland.
Yeah, I started in Maryland. That's why I ended up in CSU.
Okay, so tell me about that.
Well, I just started climbing, and then, as it turned out, I was in Maryland. that wasn't really an ideal place to be climbing.
Rock climber.
Yeah.
And this is pre-gym, so you got to pretty much be outside.
I remember somebody had a gym in DC in their little garage. I went there one time, and then actually it was pretty interesting because right around that time they opened this huge gym in Baltimore called Clipper City Rock Gym, and it was like a big deal because it was a huge gym. Like people were traveling there on the weekends.
Oh, right, like a crag. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because that's what there was.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I went back to Maryland, because I had to do that because I was only on exchange, I ended up working at Clipper City for a while because it's pretty much what was going on. But like you said, there wasn't a big gym scene.
Right.
That was very, like, really new and weird.
So you moved to CSU kind of to climb, or
pretty much, yeah.
And you were an English major also, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so was I.
So we should have been like best friends.
Yeah,
but I was really shy. I was way too intimidated because I was from the East Coast, and people, I don't know, people just weren't as friendly and outgoing, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
You found the East Coast to be more friendly than Colorado?
No, where I was from.
Oh, where you were from.
Yeah,
okay.
and because I live near DC.
So you're used to people.
Well, it just wasn't done to like walk up and look straight in people's eyes and be like, "Hi," because that's kind of how you get mugged or something.
Right.
So I didn't, you know, I was a little shy anyway, and then the way I was brought up, you don't really just go in people's face and get all friendly. So I was always, it was harder for me to like do that, you know, at first. So I think that I remember kind of after a while becoming aware that you probably had climbing t-shirts also.
No, I probably didn't because I was
but
like...
you had like outdoor clothes and
sure.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I would never have gone over and been like,
said, "Hey, you're a
hi, climber guy." Yeah. I would have been way too terrified.
Well, the truth is if some girl had done that to me, I probably wouldn't have said anything. I'd have just gotten on my rollerblades and skated away. Oh my God, she's talking to me. Goodbye. I'll see you later.
So we were not destined to be friends no matter what. Unless something happened, like unless we had both been climbing at the same place with someone else, that would have been lucky.
So you're in Maryland and you get into a little bit of climbing. Like, just real quick, like what? I mean, how did that happen? Like, what did someone you know climb? Did you go on a outing with somebody?
Well, I was very not athletic growing up at all, like really not, and
that's hard to believe.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, maybe that's too melodramatic. I think when I was like a little kid, I probably did gymnastics class or something. And I remember in school, I didn't really like team sports very much, but I liked track.
That's a pretty typical climber thing.
Yeah.
Like get a bunch of climbers on a basketball court and you'll see like that none of them ever played any sort of like real ball sport at any point.
I didn't really see the point, you know?
I think that's a really typical climber thing. So then what happened? I mean... So
anyway, you know, I guess by default, I got like deeper and deeper into music as a kid, even though I might have done like some school sports, but I didn't really like them. And
piano, right?
Piano, yeah, and flute and singing. I just through high school, it was really serious. Like I had probably 3 music classes a day, and then I would be allowed to skip other classes and practice in the practice rooms and stuff because I was like pretty deep into music. So I thought I would just...
No wonder you were shy.
Yeah, I wasn't really used to talking to people. It wasn't something I practiced very much. But yeah, so I thought I would just kind of keep down the piano road, even the first year of college. I wasn't an English major then. I was still studying music a lot. And then, but then, you know, first year you got to take all those other classes. You have to take like, it's not like high school. You can't go in the practice room and skip all your classes. They force
you to take your general ed.
You're forced to take other classes. So, and I remember I had to take math, which I didn't really like math and science.
English majors.
It wasn't very good for me. And so I was kind of traumatized. And then I was like, I'm going to take calculus because if I take calculus, I will never have to take math ever again because it's beyond any requirement. My requirements were like algebra. So I was like, I'm taking calculus and then no one can make me take math ever again. It's going to be over. So I was taking calculus and then I think like a year before that, kind of uncharacteristically, I got really into mountain biking. And I kind of like taking my bike apart and cleaning it and stuff. And Maryland's pretty good actually for mountain biking. There's like mud and trails and for the first time I was pretty psyched about a sport. So I'd be at school with my mountain bike because University of Maryland is this huge campus, and I would just ride the bike around to classes. And I was skipping my calculus class because it was really nice out. And just sitting there next to my mountain bike, and this guy came up to me, which of course was weird, and started talking to me, which was weird.
You pulled out your flute and started nervously playing.
Well, it was scary, But he wasn't like a normal looking person. He was this kind of like ruggedy looking guy because people were more business attire and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. University of Maryland. It was, this is like 1990. So, I was like, what's up with this? And then, but he was really nice. And he just said, I'm from Wyoming. I exchanged here. People really aren't super outdoorsy around this campus, and you have a mountain bike. So I just thought I would see if you might be somebody to do things with, because I really have no one to do anything with that's like an outdoor sport. And I was like, huh. And he said, well, if you want, we could like go rock climbing. And like, I didn't know what that was.
Right.
Quite honestly.
No, I grew up in the Midwest. I know.
I never heard of it.
Yeah.
There was not the gym culture. It was not mainstream. This is 1990. Like,
sure.
I literally didn't know what rock climbing was. So I was like, huh? What's that?
Right.
And he's all, well, you climb rocks.
Just like it sounds.
And I was like, oh, is that like rappelling? Because I remembered in high school, this one day, this kid said, do you guys want to go rappelling? And I had no idea what that was. And they explained it. And then I didn't end up going.
Right.
So I was like, huh, weird. But then I was intrigued because I had no idea what it was. And I was like, all right. So I just went with him. And then I loved it.
Right on.
And
that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
Because then I was just all about rock climbing. And then I kind of like dug in a little bit, and there was an outing club at the school with like, 4 people in it that would go climbing. And then I was like, I'll get a job at REI because then I'll meet more people that do stuff.
Right. And
then I worked at REI. And so I like, was forcing my way into like the core group of Maryland climbers, which was like 5 people.
Right.
And then quickly realized that if you would go out west, there was more climbing.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, that's cool. I mean, I'm sure those people like are probably, still thinking of you as, she became like this famous climber, and she started here with us in Maryland.
Well, as a matter of fact, Tony Lorenzo was my good friend who really took me under his wing in the beginning, and I have seen him since. And it's really, really cool. Just a couple times over the years. Actually, Kevin Reese is that guy who came up to me and took me climbing and showed me that there was the student exchange program. And very sad thing, he was this airborne ranger who turned into a wolf biologist. He was like the kind of guy that looked like all those things, and he was like this amazing guy. I saw him a few years after that. He got married to this woman who was super rad named Lisa. She was a hot shot, which is those smoke jumpers. And I saw him at Waco Tanks. And then it was just really thrilling to see him after all that time. And I was like really down the climbing road at that point, and he was really psyched. And then, this is super horrible, he ended up getting a brain tumor, and he died from it. And I called him because I got his phone number right before he died. And I was like, Kevin, I just want to tell you that you changed my life completely, because it's because of you that I am doing all the things I'm doing, which I'm really happy about. And
this was the guy on the mountain bike.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he, it was kind of a rough phone call because like he was really fighting with it because he knew, like he understood what I was saying, and he wanted to say things back, but the words would come out wrong. And it was a really weird conversation. I remember even because, I called him and I was like, I really just want to tell him this. And then he was like, yeah, and I remember that first day, and I took you, and he was trying to say climbing, but he said jumping, because he was actually a skydiver.
Oh, right.
And at this time, this was years before I ever imagined that I would skydive, so it was really, I remember it was like weird, and I could tell that his brain was picking the wrong words, but he knew what he meant, And I was like, man, and it was very sad, but I felt like, I told him, and he knew that he was a really important person in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people, he touched a lot of people. I wrote something about him, just a small thing in a blog post, and a few people commented on it, and they said, I met Kevin Reese, and he was just an amazing individual.
Right. Well, somebody that would leave is, even to go ahead and leave your your comfort zone in Wyoming and go to Maryland to do whatever.
Well, because he was studying wolf biology.
Sure.
And he had been this airborne Army Ranger. Like, he'd done all these crazy things. I mean, he was a tough guy. It's so crazy how cancer can you can be the toughest person.
So when you're say you're hooked on climbing and like you decide to make this path, like, can you put into words like what it is that grabbed hold of you so hard?
Well, I really liked the fact that I didn't know anything about it. I think I'm kind of a curious person, and I like finding things out, and I like learning things. I think above all, I like learning things. And so I think, for me in life at that point, I had been specializing so severely in music.
Sure.
And I sort of felt like this ceiling on me almost, like there was this thing I wasn't punching through at that point, I guess because your learning curve really flattens, right? But at that point, I was doing music so intensively. And I just felt like, I don't know, I felt like I wasn't really where I wanted to be with it in a way. I'm kind of a perfectionist person. And I don't know, and I felt like it was just something I always did, like since I was 3. I never really decided it. I was just doing it.
The music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. It was just this thing I did. And then, I mean, obviously I liked it. But when I went climbing, I was really lit up. I was like, oh my God, I love this. And I was so excited. And then I realized, like, I knew zero. Like, I didn't know how to tie the knot. I didn't even know, like, I was wearing Kevin's shoes and they were too big. I didn't even know how you would know what shoes to be wearing. And, like, I knew nothing. And it was just really interesting. My
next question was going to be, you obviously gravitated towards trad climbing, but I guess that answers itself because, I mean, that is like the world of learning all the sort of ins and outs. I mean, it's so much more complicated than bouldering or clipping bolts.
Yeah, because when I first went top roping, I was all like, wow, how do we know which tree to tie the rope for the top rope and which knot and stuff? And I was like super interested. And then I, finally learned all the top roping methods. And then when I was working at REI, there's all this gear.
Sure.
And I'm like, well, what's all this? Like, how do you even know which gear you have or get? And what do you do with it? And so, yeah, it's just really interesting.
There's also that kind of circumstantial thing is I'm always sound like the old guy on this thing, but, in the 1990s, there just wasn't very much sport climbing to be done anyway. You were a trad climber, that was just a climber. There was no extra word attached to it.
Yeah, I honestly have a problem with like the expression trad climber.
Sure. Yeah,
I just always call it normal climbing.
Right. And it has become, I think, kind of a necessary thing in terms of at least talking about the differences.
I know. It just always rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, well, I'm going to rub you the wrong way with it some more then. All right, so fast forward, you're at CSU. You're getting into climbing. Now the whole world's in front of you in terms of the Rockies.
Well, no, because I went to CSU for a year.
Oh, right.
And then I had to go back to Maryland.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
It was very, very upsetting.
So that little window I saw you in that class. It was a
little window, and then it slammed back shut because I had to go. I was on exchange, which means you go for 1 year, and then you got to go back home again. So it was pretty... like, ooh, because like you said, the window opened and then I was back in Maryland.
Oh, man.
I know. So that's why I hustled. I did my junior and senior year of school in one. So it was 2 semesters, 9 months. And then I was like, well, bam, out of there. And I applied back to CSU for a master's.
Okay.
And thankfully they took me.
Right.
And so then I got to come back.
Okay. So that's when now you're
like it's all
going
good.
For it. Okay.
Now it's all good. But it was definitely a little traumatic there when I had to go back home. I was like, no.
Right. And I guess sometime in there, or after that when you're in Estes, is sort of where I then kind of reconnected and knew you again.
Because that's when I think I spent a bunch of the summer up there after my first year of the master's. And then when I graduated, I actually skipped graduation because I had a waitressing job in Estes by then. My parents were bummed. But and then that summer I moved up to Estes.
Too.
Well, I was just like, what's the point? I have a shift. I need to earn money so I can go climbing. like, what are we going to do? I'll stand around and get the piece of paper? I already did it. So then that summer I was up in Estes and I was waiting tables.
Okay.
And then that's when you were guiding.
Right. And at some point in there, I remember going on a trip to Devil's Tower with you and your magician friend.
We went on a trip together?
Yeah, don't you remember?
No.
Who was your friend who was the magician?
Chris, this is so horrible.
It's okay.
I'm
Don't
just
worry
adding
about it.
you to the file of people I've been on trips with and I don't even remember.
Do you remember the magician friend?
It must have been Andy.
Yeah. We all went up there. Me and Marco and you and Andy.
We did?
Yeah.
See, why can't I remember
and
anything?
your buddy Andy was doing like card tricks and stuff in the campground.
You know what I've noticed? I have a really bad memory anyway.
That's
but
okay.
I noticed I remember after going on that trip to Shipton Spire, and it wasn't even that high of altitude.
Right.
My memory got even worse. Yeah. So I'm trying to blame that for the fact that I can't remember anything. But,
all right. Anyway,
but
it was
I don't
a great
remember
trip,
that. But I can imagine that would be a trip we would take.
And Andy, your buddy, was like...
Andy was the best.
He was killing it. Every night
he was a great magician.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was an Air Force pilot.
Andy. I know. I remember. Yeah. No.
And he was getting his master's in physics in Boulder.
Yeah.
Which is how I ended up meeting him.
Yeah. No. I thought. Yeah. I guess it had an impression on me.
Oh well, because I knew
together,
Andy
though.
a lot, so I'm sure we went on a bunch of trips.
Yeah.
But I just don't remember that specific. I didn't know I actually went climbing with you.
No. Well, you were climbing with Andy, and I was
you were
climbing
with Marco.
Yeah,
so once again, we missed our opportunity.
Yeah, anyway, those were good
for you to become
guys.
my favorite belayer.
So you're in Estes Park. Then I lose touch with you.
Gone.
That's it. You're gone.
Because
you pretty much
I was
go
out
to
of
California.
Colorado.
Yeah.
No, then I was in Moab.
You were in Moab.
Moab / everywhere else.
Right. So, and that's when you sort of became a name. Then I started hearing about you because you were in the magazines and you were in pictures and that sort of thing. So, and that's actually my next kind of question is, so you're climbing a bunch, you love it, and obviously some doors start getting open to you in terms of becoming quote unquote a professional climber, someone who can climb all the time.
First I was in Moab
Right.
and I was waiting tables here for a while, and then I was guiding for a while. So it wasn't from my point of view like this overnight thing.
No, I imagine, and that's what I mean by like these little doors get open here and there.
Exactly.
You probably the typical thing somebody's giving you some gear, and then you're getting a free harness, and you're maybe getting.
Yeah.
I mean, how did it end up working for you?
Well, I think what ended up happening in the very beginning was like, people were giving me some gear, which was great because obviously I was just waiting tables and taking off a bunch of months and pretty broke overall. But I was living in my car, so that's the way to make it work.
Right.
And then I remember at one point I got a sponsorship that about equaled my waitressing income.
Sure.
Waitressing / guiding income, which I think I was making like $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, wow.
I have those same tax returns. I don't know how I survived.
Yeah, but then for me that was amazing because then
Yeah.
instead of like waiting tables and guiding, now I could climb all the time instead. So that was like life changing. Just eking it by like that.
Right.
But that really did change everything.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. It seems like most people it's incremental, and there's like some gear, and then there's a little bit of money, and then and then you sort of make a choice of like, okay, well, how far am I going to kind of go with this? And you're still living in your car. It's not like, okay, cool, I get to buy a house now or anything.
Oh, no,
like
no,
that.
no.
Yeah.
It just was that now instead of having to work in the restaurant or guiding, I could climb all the time.
And as a perspective of somebody outside kind of looking in, and someone who's, follows the history of climbing, it's like you were at a position, and I'm going to say that word again, as a woman who's trad climbing and going on big expeditions, but specifically rock climbing. And I think that made you stand out in terms of someone who maybe sponsors looked at and said, yeah, this is a person that we're going to, it's going to represent us really well. Because I don't think there was a lot of people doing that, a lot of women particularly doing that at that time. You were a really good crack climber, and those images I remember being really, like stuff like Indian Creek is everywhere now, and some of those first images of you climbing cracks down there I think really stand out in people's minds. So, and then the El Cap stuff later on. So when you were sort of now free to climb as much as you wanted to, or as you could pull off with $10,000 in your pocket.
Well, like I said, that
was.
replaced my income.
Yeah.
So I still had to live in my car.
So how did you, what were the kind of things that motivated you towards different projects? I mean, somewhere in there you mentioned Shipton Spire. There's a lot of images of you from El Cap a little bit later than that.
Well, at that time, I was really, really psyched on going on trip. And I really fell in love with Patagonia. The first time I went there was in '96 with Charlie Fowler, and I was still waiting tables.
I remember that, actually.
But in Moab, it's seasonal, and what happens is the restaurants shut down over the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So you put part of your tip money, taxes, into unemployment, and then when the restaurant shuts in the winter, they give you back salary for those 3 months. So I think it was like $1,000 or something what I got, and so I just bought a plane ticket to Patagonia with that. And then I just was nuts about Patagonia after that trip. And so I ended up going down there for 7 seasons. So at that time, my life was like winter meant Patagonia. And then, because I was sort of in that groove of like the expedition stuff. And then obviously I wanted to rock climb a lot, but I'd come home from Patagonia, I'd rock climb. And then it's the summer. The summer is a really good expedition time for the other types of places.
Right.
You know, I was like ready for any opportunity that came up.
Sure.
And so then I ended up going to Pakistan twice. I went to Baffin Island. I went to Kyrgyzstan because, like, you know, anytime friends were going somewhere and there was an opportunity, I was like, I'll go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just on this like cycle. By the time you come home from the summer one and get things together and climb a little bit, now it's time for Patagonia.
Sure.
So that whole phase, it was just like this expedition cycle, which was rad. I loved it. It was a struggle to rock climb to my highest potential, and like I couldn't even come close.
Right.
Because, you know, you're carrying a backpack around a glacier.
Yeah, expedition climbing is notorious for making you out of shape.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so I would come home and like desperately try to get back in shape. But then you got to train for the expedition. You got to start carrying a backpack up a hill or you're just going to choke on the trip. So it was a really like juggling a lot of different types of fitnesses, like trying really hard to. But at the same time, that's what I wanted to do. Like I would not have stopped going on those trips. And I would always be like a little frustrated because I'd come home and, you know, my friends would have spent like the whole season at Rifle and just be crushing. And I would be like, ugh, like project in the warm-ups. But I couldn't give up those expeditions. I just was nuts about it.
And you're sort of, you know, if it wasn't a mission, I mean, obviously your focus was free climbing. And even on these expeditions. I've never known you to be some sort of stand in your aiders type person. So
well, when I went to Baffin, that trip was an aid climbing trip, and I did spend a little time. Like I climbed the hallucinogen. Black
Who did
Canyon.
you go up there with to the Baffin?
To Baffin,
yeah.
I'm with Russ Mitrovich.
Okay, right.
And but
I remember that.
I kind of had this little phase, and then I went on El Cap and did a winter ascent because I was like, aid climbing is my weakness, and I need to be competent. You want to go climb big routes and do first ascents.
Sure.
You need to have a good high level of being able to aid climb when necessary, and I felt that I was lacking in that department, and that's partly why I went on the Baffin trip.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I like knowing how to do it, and it is pretty badass and nuts and stuff, but I don't pick it
right
at this point. But I did do a little phase of it. But you're right, I would much rather free climb.
So after that, you've got this like trip after trip after trip after trip. At some point, that changed, and you settled down a little bit more in Yosemite, and
I was in Yosemite a bunch,
right?
And then I was starting to kind of have that frustration level. I was just like, I never get to free climb like I want to, because I'm always back from a trip and leaving on a trip and out of shape, and it's very frustrating,
Right.
So I was in Yosemite, and then I just thought, okay, I'm not going to let go of Patagonia, but I'm going to stop the summer trips. This is going to give me the opportunity to stay a little more fit and push more with free climbing. And then I was in Yosemite, so I was like, well, of course you're going to free climb in El Cap, because what else is there to do after a certain point?
Right.
And
so, it took a long time for people to come up with that equation. For
well,
whatever
I've
reason.
been climbing there for a lot of years,
right.
On trips and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had reached that point after many years.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it took forever for someone to go, you know what, maybe we should go up there and free climb.
But
it took 2 Austrian guys coming, pretty much,
exactly.
other than Lynn.
Exactly.
And Todd and Paul. But
yeah, so that's that was what was going on. So I was like, the El Cap stuff, I'm psyched on that.
But you got a little domestic too, because you were married by this point.
I was married, yeah.
Okay. And were you guys living somewhere, or were you guys just still carring it?
Well, at that point, I had this place in Moab, and I really called this home.
Right.
But there was a compromise to be made in that relationship, and the compromise was spending more time in Yosemite.
Okay.
Which sounds like this ooh-ah thing, but as a lifestyle, Yosemite did not fit me very well.
I always find it to be a kind of an exhausting place to be because of everything but the climbing.
Yeah,
the climbing's fantastic,
yeah.
but everything else is like all the rules and people and bears and I always find it just gets under my skin after a while. But I mean,
well, you and I have very similar things that make us happy and similar lifestyle requirements.
Right.
And that's Yosemite wasn't that great for me. I had Fletcher, my dog, and she was like the other half of me, and then now she's illegal because she's a dog, and that just really drove me nuts. And driving your car all the time, if you actually live in Yosemite, each day, anytime you want to do anything, you're going around that loop. If you need to get food or something, some people do a pretty good job of staying mostly on bike, but a lot of times that's just not practical.
Well,
if
it
got
takes
a bunch
all
of
day,
gear.
right? Or it's like it takes a huge chunk out of your day to do.
Exactly. So you're trying to get climbing done. That means you're driving, and the loop means that no matter what you do that day, you're in the car at least a half hour. If you're living in Foresto, which I eventually was doing, each day that you go to the valley, that's an hour in the car minimum. And just to me, that's not an ideal lifestyle.
Right.
And then, like you say, the rangers, when you live in Yosemite, you're unfortunately a lot more privy to real life in the valley, which always sounds kind of paranoid and nutso to people that haven't been there. But when you actually live there, it's a police force presence.
Sure. Oh,
and
no, they're not rangers.
Yeah. And it kind of affects your personality because you're always second guessing yourself. Like, oh, am I in trouble right now? Should I be cautious? Should I be hiding? And you're looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy.
No.
That just makes you like a cagey person.
Yeah.
So I didn't like that either. So anyway, there were things that for me weren't great about Yosemite, but that's what was going on. And then that's why the idea of spending time in El Cap for me was like a respite, because I thought, okay, and at that time, people weren't climbing on El Cap that much,
right.
And I wasn't very known in Yosemite, and I would take Fletcher. I would walk her up the Tamarack Flats Trail. It's like a 3-hour hike instead of going up the East Ledges.
Sure.
And I would walk with Fletch because she was a really good dog. And, she didn't do anything bad. She was totally obedient, very low-key, very perfect dog. So I could trust her. Like if we had to suddenly hide, she would know what was going on, and she wouldn't be like chasing animals or bark. She was just perfect.
Right.
Like she was better than me.
Right.
So
I could just see you like behind a bush, like holding your hand over her mouth.
No, a couple of times Fletch and I had to like go commando up there.
Right.
Once there was a helicopter rescue.
Really?
Bad timing. And Fletch and I were like darting from pine tree to pine tree to get out of there. It was terrible. But so I would take her up there with me. And then I would go stay in a little cave that wasn't the known cave. It was like a secret cave. And Fletch would stay there. And then in the day I would go down, wrap down and climb. And Fletch would stay in the cave. And then at night, we just sleep together. And it was great. So it was that was a way I could make Yosemite feel normal.
Well, it's interesting you talk about that because you were actually a sort of a distant inspiration to me at that time, or right after that, because your article about doing the free rider that was in climbing, I believe, was a big motivator for me to go out and do it. Because there was that little shot by shot thing of you on the crux.
Yeah, suddenly after I did free rider, everybody wanted to do free rider.
Well,
I was
that's
like,
what happens. It gets in the magazines.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, well,
it got real busy up there.
I think, partially was that there was that promotion of it, but it also, there was kind of a collective pressure, I think, that
there was a critical
building.
mass that was coming.
For sure.
Because suddenly it was kind of explosion on El Cap.
And, I had climbed El Cap a bunch of times as an aid climber. And so for me, the seed was already in my head when I had heard about the free rider because of the grade. And I was like, wow, maybe I can attain that. And then piling on that article, and I knew you, so I kind of was like, oh yeah, I climbed with her back in the day. I could do this thing too. And but it was interesting to me to read about how much time you'd spent up there. And now it's enlightening to know that there was a lot more to that than just wanting to climb the route. It was like you were up there,
it was just to have a good lifestyle.
Hiding out.
Yeah, exactly.
Cap.
It was just to have a good lifestyle.
Yeah,
it was just something to do.
All right, so El Cap, you end up freeing the head wall too on another trip after that. Was that right?
To do the Salothay?
Yeah.
Well, same thing. It was like something else to do. I couldn't take Fletch then because she was getting elderly, and there was no way she was going to walk up Tamarack Flats anymore. And it was getting busy up there.
Sure.
And so
you couldn't hide out.
There was kind of, it had changed. It had become a different place. But then, she was elderly anyway. She didn't want to be going up there. So what I would do was I would make day trips to work on the head wall. And I would just wake up at like 2 a.m. and then I would walk up the East Ledges. I'd be up there at like 6 or 7 a.m. because it would get sunny after 11. So I would just be up there like real early, go down, work on the head wall. It would get in the sun 10 or 11. I would just go back down.
Sure. And
then spend the rest of the day in the valley. And Fletch didn't care if I was like out for the morning.
Right.
So that's again, it was something to do. And then it was something that fit in with how things were. I mean, honestly, most of my things have revolved around Fletcher.
Well, and it's just like this very, monk-like experience or existence. You're just getting up super early every day and marching around. And
well, it wasn't every day because I would need rest days. Because then Fletch got really old, and that's why I was at Rifle that whole one summer because she couldn't really walk very well.
Right, I remember.
Yeah,
the little wagon.
The little wagon.
Yeah. So
she was such a good dog.
Well, and it's just to kind of wrap this up. So I then again, this is all about me, but I lost. That's also like an era where I sort of lost track of you. Not that I was tracking you, but I just remember thinking.
But we didn't see each other because I was in California and Moab and stuff.
And I remember, because of the articles about El Cap, and so I read those and studied that your beta for the crux pitch on the free rider and used it actually almost verbatim, I think.
Because you're like the same size as me.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, she can reach those holds, I can reach those holds. Anyway, so then you come back to Moab. I mean, when you said you're in Rifle and all that, where were you based out of at that point?
Well, I mean, I always was based out of Moab,
okay. But
I just would have these chunks of time in Yosemite. The Yosemite phase was over, and I was free to live in Moab.
Nod, nod.
So then I didn't have to go to the valley anymore. Okay. And I spent a lot of time in Yosemite,
sure.
And I'm happy for it.
Right.
And for me, it was amazing to free El Cap in a day. It was amazing to free Freerider at all at that time.
Right.
And for me, and then it was amazing to free the Salathé. I can't really think of other big Yosemite dreams I would have like that. So I feel really happy with that time. And, I've gone back and done some other things that someone like myself might want to do in Yosemite that might involve things that aren't climbing.
Right.
But it's... I don't feel the need to immerse myself there anymore. Not that I'm saying there's nothing for me to do. I'm just saying, I've free climbed Half Dome, Watkins. It's like all that stuff. I spent a bunch of time there. So I'm very happy to not have to be there a lot right now.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I wanted to ask you about free soloing because in the old show, we actually, unbeknownst to you, talked about you as an example of a woman who actually... not just free soloed on her own, but it was something that you were, at least for a short era in there, known for with the ascent of the Yellow Wall, what did you...
Oh, on the Diamond?
On the Diamond.
I soloed the casual route twice and the vertical twice.
Okay, so we were just talking in that episode about women not free soloing and why guys do it, because most of the guys I know who are quote-unquote trad climbers, sorry... At some point, almost all of them at some point at least dabble in it and say to themselves, well, I've done this route 20 times. I'm going to try to do it without a rope. And I don't find that many women that do it. I don't know what it's all connected to, but you were a person that did. And we were talking about before we turned the mics on about when you were in Estes and I was in Estes, I was guiding, and occasionally you would, if not for me or other guides, people would talk about how suddenly they were on some route and all their clients were tittering down there, and then Steph Davis came, excuse me, pardon me, soloing on by like our 4 clients, and then that would be the only thing they'd talk about for the rest of the day, like this crazy woman that didn't have a rope on and all this stuff, and like, but what was the inspiration there? You said to me that you free soloed since the beginning almost.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, ever since I started climbing, because I didn't always have people to climb with, or I don't know, I guess it's like the same thing too. I like to do a lot of things by myself.
Right.
I've always liked running. I don't usually run with someone. I just like to go. To me, it's just one part of climbing.
Right. What motivated you to step it up and do those diamond things? I have free soloed myself, but that sort of makes my palms sweat thinking about that.
A long time before that, I kind of started stepping it up a little bit, just with single pitch stuff at Indian Creek, just doing some harder free solos. And one time I soloed Scarface, and I was starting to think it was kind of the weird thing about Indian Creek is that I'd have to bring a little tagline and wrap down because
you don't top out.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So it's like a little bit not so great because it's kind of weird to do that. And then when I soloed Scarface, I was like, you know what? It's much cooler to down solo because then it's like you go up and down again, no rope, right?
Right.
So I did that, and then and I just kind of, I was always just slightly pushing it sometimes.
Right.
Not all the time. Like I would kind of regularly, especially when I lived in Yosemite, it was just such a regular thing. Like almost every morning,
Sure.
we would go do the Royal Arches, and then like, you know, every couple weeks or something, go do Snake Dike, and then go up to Tuolumne and do like Fairview Dome. And so it's like a very regular routine of the easy soloing. But then sometimes for special, when you felt like it, pick something a little harder.
Right.
So I guess it's just always been in the mix for me to do like a little bit of a harder thing. But then I'd never really done something, you know, so long, more committing of free soloing. And to me, the diamond was this huge dream, kind of like freeing El Cap. It's like this thing you dream about forever. Like, could I ever do that? And then, because I love the diamond. I mean, I always was climbing up there. Remember when we were younger, and that's why I was in Estes. It was for the diamond.
Sure.
I mean, I climbed there a lot. Like, I was obsessed with the diamond. I spent a lot of time up there. And so to me, it was just always something. I always dreamed of that. And then, like you said, I did kind of like disappear into foreign countries and Yosemite and stuff like that. So that season when I went back to Estes, it was kind of like a homecoming for me.
Sure.
Just a return to those days. And I just wanted to be at the diamond at that time because I felt like it was missing. And then it was the obvious thing to do.
But yeah, that was really an interesting thing for me to see you up there doing that because of the, hey, what's up, Cajun?
How adorable she is.
Yeah. You know, because like I said, my history up there too. So those sorts of things really grab me when someone I know and then do climbing on things that I've climbed on. I mean, it's just pretty cool. Cajun's all up in her lap, licking her.
Yeah, she's so cute. What a good dog.
So, moving on, I don't want to do the full chronology of your life, but now you've got this whole, and I do want to touch on this, although we're getting on here, but, this whole base jumping thing, and you mentioned sort of wink, wink, nod, nod, going back to
all
Yosemite.
the things in Yosemite that you can do that aren't climbing things.
Yeah.
Well,
There's
I'm
no
not going to incriminate myself.
Exactly. In that statement.
Because I know how those rangers are. I'm not giving them anything. Remember that ridiculous whole thing that they hauled some poor climbers, jumpers into court on video?
Oh, no. I don't know.
It was terrible. It was just terrible.
It's grim.
So that's why I will not incriminate myself.
Yeah, the podcast. I'll press play. You'll be like,
a NormoCast will be on court. I'm serious. You laugh.
I'll get
you
subpoenaed.
You just wait. They're going to subpoena us both and be like, you must tell us the truth or it's perjury.
So how did you end up starting to base jump?
I started, actually the same season I came back to Estes to climb the diamond. I came back to Colorado. I left Yosemite. Is that dog door making too much noise?
No, it's cool.
She's in and out.
That's cool.
I left Yosemite, finally, and just was like, what should I do? And I just thought I want to go back to the Front Range. I'll just go to Colorado. So, a little bit lost right then in a way, but that's kind of, I guess you want to go home.
Right.
At those times. And to me, that meant the Front Range. So I didn't have a specific intention, like I said, of soloing the diamond that summer. I just kind of wanted to be near the diamond.
Right.
Because to me, that was comforting, like being home. And then I just very spontaneously, impetuously, and impulsively decided to start skydiving. I had some good friends at the drop zone in Longmont, and they were skydivers, and had just become friends with them over the years. And I was just like, hey, you guys, I want to learn how to skydive now. And they were like, what? Because I had no interest in jumping before that, like pretty dramatically. And I was like, yep, I want to learn how to skydive. Can you guys teach me now? And they were like, okay. So I just basically moved to Boulder and pretty much moved into the drop zone, just started skydiving.
What year is this about?
This was 2007.
Okay, so not that long ago.
Yeah, about 5 years ago. And just got really obsessed by jumping, skydiving. And like you say, I mean, every day I'd ride up in the plane and you exit and you're looking at the diamond.
Oh,
it's
right on.
right there in front of your face. And so, as like the time went by, I was climbing more. I was going into El Dorado where I hadn't spent much time in the past. And, little solo forays, like going up and soloing the Flying Buttress, things like that. And just kind of getting up in the park. And then at the same time spending time with the diamond. So it was all together when I was starting to jump. But the summer ended, and I don't actually live in Boulder. I have a house here in Moab,
right.
And so I was like, it's time to go home now. And but I was really loved jumping as much as I love climbing. And here, we've got a tiny drop zone. It's a Cessna operation. It's not really set up for fun jumpers. It's more for tandems.
Okay.
And I was jumping every day for those first months I started. And, it's kind of hard to go from like jumping every day to not jumping at all. And then that's why I realized I had to start base jumping in Moab. So then it was like a progression to base. But I still skydive a bunch.
Right.
As much as I can. But I live here. So, it's like you can base jump every day.
Sure.
So there's a little more effort to skydive when you live in Moab.
And then you started doing expeditions to Europe to jump off of things.
Well, that's the thing. My summer trips became about going to Europe because here, frustratingly enough, the few wingsuitable cliffs that we have accessible and available to us are in national parks. And then you've got this whole ranger situation of like running around.
And for those of you who don't know, it's across the board illegal to base jump in national parks. Yeah. That's
right. So, which I find a very ludicrous rule and enforced to a ridiculous degree.
Yeah.
So it's just not fun.
Right.
It's not worth it. It's too much effort, too much risk, too much hassle. You hike all night, hiding. Ugh.
Right.
So I would rather take all that effort and money. They bust you. They charge you money. I'd rather just go to Europe.
Right.
And they've got huge, huge cliffs everywhere. Amazing for the wingsuit jumping. You jump all day, every day, as much as you want. Yeah, you get busted once here in the States and it costs that much money or more.
Yeah, the whole trip to
Europe.
Yeah,
the whole budget.
Right.
So I just like to go to Europe in the summers now and not deal with that. And then in Moab, we've got the short cliffs and it's all BLM land. And BLM does not outlaw base jumping. It's just another sport here. And so I can jump as much as I want on the short cliffs, but you need the tall cliffs to fly your wingsuit.
Right.
And that's why I like to go to Europe in the summers.
And you met Mario, your husband now, through base jumping?
I
or
first met him
rather.
skydiving because he was flying the jump plane here in
cool.
Moab. And like I said, it's a small drop zone, but it's also a small town. And so I live here. I'm a local. And if I make the effort, it's my friends who own the drop zone.
Sure.
And you're kind of like a third class passenger. Like you have to call and text every day and say, is there a single tandem today? And if there might be, you have to show up early and not be late. And you could get bumped off because another person. But if you're willing to go through all that, you can do some skydiving here. And so I definitely, at times will devote the day to maybe doing a jump in that way. And so I was there to skydive, and Mario was flying the plane at that time.
You're like, sweet. I'll hook up with this pilot.
No,
to jump all I want.
No, he.
I know.
Actually, we met. We met in the plane, but then Mario is a really long time, very motivated base jumper. And so again, it's a small town. There's not a lot of people. And he's just really motivated for adventurous stuff. And when I was stoked on free soloing Castleton on the North Face and jumping it, I just kind of needed to climb the route a few times to see if that was a good idea and to jump it a few times. And I was just looking for somebody that would want to do that,
sure.
Instead of like trying to find a belay slave road. I was like, does anybody want to do this? And Mario was like, oh yeah, I'm always happy to jump Castleton. I'll go. I can Jumar. And so then that's kind of when we first were more getting to know each other.
Cool.
Time went by.
And you guys got married and jumped off the tombstone. Is that right?
Parriott Mesa.
Oh, Parriott Mesa.
Yeah.
Right on. I just saw the pictures.
Yeah.
So you said I do and then leaped off. Is that how it worked?
Well, what it was we just kind of wanted to do something fun with all our friends.
Yeah.
And we really like Parriott, and you're looking right at Castleton, it's very beautiful, and it's a really cool hike. Mm-hmm. And for jumpers, it's an awesome jump. For climber friends, it's just fun to go up there because there's like some scrambling and
Sure.
it's almost like a Via Ferrata.
Yeah, I've been up it actually.
Yeah, it's really cool. So
Yeah.
it's just worth it. So we were like, let's just, all these weddings, it's just so much too much.
Right.
It's all this like work and money and crazy, and I was like, I just want to do something fun with our friends.
Yeah.
So the idea was just, our close friends that we do stuff
Mm-hmm.
with, let's just all go up there, and the jumpers can jump and the climbers can go down, and we'll have champagne up there, and people can dress up in like crazy outfits.
Yeah.
And
I saw the photos. It's
just
great.
for fun,
Yeah.
So the idea was just to do something fun.
So how much of the wedding party jumped?
I would say a good. I'm looking at that picture. I'm saying at least 50%, maybe more.
Nice. That's totally awesome.
Yeah, and it was great.
And so you have this connection with base jumping, and that you get to climb these things and then jump off of them.
Yeah, that's a cool thing to do.
Castleton, you free soloed it, jumped off. I mean, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what a connection.
Yeah, that's, honestly, of all the things I've done, like as a climber, that's always going to be my favorite
Right.
thing.
And you've climbed the Titan and jumped off of it. And
no, I didn't climb it.
Oh,
I
you
jugged
didn't?
it.
Oh, you jugged
because
it.
some friends of mine were climbing it.
Oh, right. That's
and
right.
they said that on Facebook, and I said, hey, would you guys mind if we used your
Yeah.
lines because it's easy? And they were like, yeah, no problem. So I actually went and put my own fixed ropes, and we jugged it 3 times and jumped it. But
That's a heinous climb anyway.
Yeah, I have to say, jugging it, I was kind of like, I'm not that really inspired to climb it myself.
From what I understand, as a free climb, it's really heinous.
Yeah,
so
I was definitely
if it's
checking
even
it
been
out
done.
with those eyes, and
Yeah.
I wasn't that excited. But I was happy to jump it and happy to get the free ride up it from those guys.
We have been climbing together a little bit this winter after so many years apart.
I
And,
know, and think of all this time we've wasted.
Oh, I know. It's so sad. But I was just kind of wrapping up because we're getting on to about an hour here. But where are you now with climbing? I mean, you've got this base jumping thing. You're starting a business guiding base jumping and teaching. What did you say, like second jump kind of style?
Well, it's kind of a multi-part thing. There's the base jumping side, which is the most general thing is guiding of experienced jumpers that
Sure.
aren't from here, and they just want to be shown a lot of awesome places, like with no hassles.
Sounds great.
Yeah, so there's that. And then there's first cliff. There's first bridge courses right now, or I guess first base jump courses, where
Right.
you get taught as a skydiver at the bridge, which is how I learned.
Right.
And but then once you've done that, it's pretty different deal to jump cliffs
Yeah.
than a bridge. And
So you guys are going to provide instruction in that.
yeah, for first cliff courses. Tandem base jumping, that's Mario's department.
Right.
And and that's actually how we got engaged. We did a tandem base jump.
Really?
Yeah, I had to be his first passer.
Oh man,
And it
that's
was
commitment.
So much more fun than we were expecting. We
Really?
just got all carried away and got engaged.
Cool.
Or I guess so much more fun than I was expecting. And but also guiding base jumpers to jump towers. Like people want to jump Ancient
Sure.
Art and Castleton, but jumpers don't necessarily have the climbing equipment and skills.
Right.
And then, a little bit of climbing guiding. Like I've done a little bit of guiding in the past year, mostly to benefit Leighton Core.
Right.
People have just said, hey, would you guide me up Castleton? And I'll say, yeah, if you give money to Leighton, let's go do it.
Sure.
And just realizing that it's pretty fun to guide people in towers. Like I really enjoy it.
Yeah, if you can, especially if you can sort of handpick your clients.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a special thing,
Yeah,
It's not
totally.
everybody that wants to, and
Right.
then it's actually really fun. So doing those things is the business. Basically.
So now where does climbing fit in to your life nowadays? Now that you're splitting your time between this other activity in a way
two
that
things.
you weren't 10 years ago.
Well, the funny thing is it's less splitting, because before it was such a struggle with the trips
Okay.
and trying to free climb. And now, since I only really go to Europe in the summer and then like little trips, I am able to climb way more consistently.
Okay.
So base jumping is actually like less of a performance destroyer than going on expeditions.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because normally you'd think, okay, now you're splitting your energies or whatever, but
It is still a struggle,
Right.
but I guess in comparison to the other one, it's less of a struggle.
so is that kind of then climbing wise your focus now is just is trying to kind of just stay in shape and reach your potential on smaller things, not so much expedition.
Yeah. Like I say, I really, really, really love going to Europe and flying the wingsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's very top priority.
Right.
That takes priority over going on a trip to climb a
Sure.
thing.
Right.
And so then at home, I just want to be climbing as much as I can and just doing projects in the desert because that's what I really like.
And you're still finding new stuff to do around here?
Yeah, it's endless.
Yeah. You're not going to tell me where any of it is?
Secret stuff.
Right on. All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you sitting down with me, and I am really psyched to be climbing with you this winter. And I know I sort of bugged you until you committed to sitting down.
I wanted to do the podcast, Chris, because I'm your biggest fan.
Right on. Yeah, so thanks a lot, and thanks for letting me into your house, and I appreciate, Mario, that you snuck around quietly in the background wherever you are now.
I think he's fixing something.
Thanks, Steph.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, that's it for this episode of the Normal Cast. If you want to find out more about Steph Davis, communicate with Steph, you can go to her website, highinfatuation.com. You can follow her on Twitter at HiSteph. You could also pick up her book. Amazon.com has it, High Infatuation, A Climber's Guide to Love and Gravity. I think there might be a preface by Stephen Hawking. I'm not sure about that, though. Don't quote me on that. As for the Normal Cast, please, if you like what you hear, tell some friends. Go to the website, leave some comments. Go to our Facebook page. That's the royal we. My Facebook page. It's just me over here. I don't have an intern like Fitz Cahall does over at Dirtbag Diaries. The latest episode, at least it was the latest a couple weeks ago, of Dirtbag Diaries has Fitz Cahall being interviewed by one of his interns. An intern. Anyway, I need an intern. They, or preferably she, could be editing while I was out climbing. And a little bit of, light housework and some yard work and a few other things. Anybody want to send me an application, just feel free. Go to the website. Anyway, go to the website, leave some comments. Also, subscribe on iTunes. All this helps me. I need to get people listening, because then I can go to Pabst Blue Ribbon and say, yo, this is worth your while to give me some money. I want money and beer now. All right, that's it for the Normal Cast this week. Thanks for listening.
I ain't never seen them, but my common sense tells me the Andes is foothills and the Alps is for children to climb. These here is God's finest sculptures. There ain't no laws for the brave ones, and there ain't no asylums for the crazy ones, and there ain't no churches except for this right here.